Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and let's talk a little bit about German and European cars. Um, there's this conception about them that they're so well refined, such beautiful cars. BMW claims ultimate driving machine, that kind of stuff. And, in a lot of ways it's true. They're very nice cars when they're brand new. And it's a car that I would probably only own under a lease. And I'll start to tell you a little bit why. This dates back to when my wife was looking, we're looking for a good car for her. And so she said, well, I want something, with 4 doors. And I said, well, if it's going to be 4 doors, then let's get something cool like a little BMW or, something like that. I was always partial to the M3s, that kind of thing. And so we set off around town looking around, and we came across a nice little red BMW 328i, and I thought, well, maybe this would be a good little car. And in the back of your mind, you have all these horror stories about German cars and repair costs and those kind of things. And so, sure enough, the salesman was, eager to sell it to us, and then he kind of just jumped off of the ship out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he said, "Oh, and by the way, the window doesn't roll down. You take care of that. I'll take like $2,000 off the price." And I was like, "Wow, really? $2,000? What's the deal?" And so he began telling me about how hard it was, first of all, to find parts and then find anybody to work on it, and that kind of thing. So at an early age, I was understanding that I probably don't want to get involved in these cars just because of the parts alone. What we ended up doing was buying an Infiniti G35 sedan, and I loved it. It was a white one, and a few years later, we got our mileage out of it and sold it and got a blue one and bought the same body style again. Great car, Japanese car. That car with 130,000 miles on it now drives better than my Mach 1 with 120,000 miles on it. So there's some really good Japanese cars out there. But anyway, back to the story. These European cars, it seems to me that anything that they want to do differently or anything they could do differently, they have. For example, my mom loves her Volvo, and it's been parked and needing attention for years. There's always something wrong with it. And so basically, as I was helping her work on it, I came across the most strange things, at least strange to me being an American car owner. First of all, it's like for an example of one of those things that they changed for no apparent reason other than maybe just to be different. If you look at some of these German and European cars, you take the wheel off, and instead of having lug nut studs that come out that you can hang the wheel on and take the wheel off of, the whole stud itself is what you thread into the wheel hub. So basically, you have a wheel, you set it up there, and you're putting the whole stud in and tightening it in. And it was just the weirdest, most awkward thing, and I just thought, why wouldn't they just have regular studded wheels where you can put the wheel on and tighten down lug nuts? As I was helping her change the fuel pump on it a while back too, it was, telling us we'd have to drop the whole independent rear suspension and mark and align everything, or it's gonna, have catastrophic failures, and just a nightmare to work on these cars. Everything on it is some kind of an Allen or a Torx bit, and it's just nothing that we conventionally have as tools as Americans. And maybe somebody over in the European realm have all these tools because they're used to it, but for a normal person buying these cars, it's a lot different. So anyway, years pass, and we're enjoying our Infiniti, and I've always had a soft spot for the M3s and the M5s. And I was watching some Nurburing track videos because, man, if people have problems with Mustangs hitting crowds, go go to YouTube and type in BMW Nuremberg crash, and it is car after car after car spinning out and hitting walls and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, needless to say, it's not going to be a perfect car no matter what it is. You know, it's all about the driver. Um, but anyways, I was watching these videos. I thought, oh, you know, M3s, M5s are kind of cool. Let's see what we can find here. And so I started YouTubing them and looking them up, and I found that these M3s and M5s, like in the 2008 and 9, around that range, were selling for dirt cheap. And I thought that was really weird. An M3 that was, you know, $70,000 car selling for the low, you know, 15,000 range. And so I said, there has to be something up with these cars. And so I started watching videos, and I was appalled with what I found. I mean, a lot of it I understood because, you know, these German cars have such a bad reputation of very costly parts, throttle actuators, and, you know, seatbelt loop things that push your seatbelt out, and those little things breaking, and, you know, okay, that's all common. But I was I was shocked to find that a lot of these BMW, especially the M cars, are having rod bearing failures. And so what's happening as you're watching these videos, you know, these are cars that are Germanly engineered. They're supposed to be perfect in my book. You know, they're supposed to be something that engine should never have any kind of problem. But year after year, all the way from the E46, you know, BMWs, you know, in the 2000 era, all the way up to the newer ones, they're having rod bearing failures. And from what I can see, they're using 10W60 weight oil, okay, really thick oil, which on one hand that sounds good, but it doesn't sound like it was properly engineered, because the rod bearings are wearing prematurely, which could be a sign of either too tight of a tolerance, and or having an oil weight that's so thick it can't get in and lubricate the bearings. And so I'm watching all these videos, and then I'm looking at these M3s for sale, and man, you can pick them up super cheap. And I don't know if it's just because of that, or the ultimate, you know, this is a German car resale, nobody wants to pay for dealership prices when everything breaks on it kind of thing. But I was intrigued in watching a bunch of videos and enjoying them. And one series I saw, which I thought was pretty cool, because whenever, you know, you've had a spun bearing, or you know, you've thrown a rod, obviously the whole engine needs to come out and be remachined and everything. But because these failures are so common, a lot of these BMW M fans are able to take the car and drop the K-member, take off the oil pan, and replace the rod bearings with the engine still in the car. And so something I never really thought about, because usually if you're replacing rod bearings, then you've spun a bearing, or, you know, it's toast. But if you're doing it preventative wise, it's kind of an interesting concept. But I'm seeing these people take these cars, these BMW M cars, and they're paying $3,000 to $5,000 at a shop to have somebody put in new rod bearings, which is something you could do on your own. And so I was almost intrigued to the point where I thought it'd be kind of fun to buy one of these, you know, a low mile nice one where I'm not covered in oil and grease, and, you know, maybe do one as a project. But the more I read about it and understand it, the farther and farther I want to get away from these cars. I'm convinced that a lot of these German cars these companies are making more money on resale, you know, dealership parts than they are on the actual car. I had a friend of mine with a Mercedes, and he was telling me about an intake manifold that needed to be replaced. He was telling me about a ignition key switch that needed to be replaced, and he's talking several $1,000s, and things that you apparently cannot do on your own. And maybe that's not the case. Maybe you'd have to buy some special tooling and everything. But anyway, the point of the video is, you know, I'm a car enthusiast, honestly. I like all the other cars. I'm not one-sided, not Mustang or die. You know, I like all the cars, and they're fun to watch, and they're fun to learn about. But the more and more I learn about these European cars, the more I'm opt to stay away from them and keep with a Mustang. Granted, every car is going to be having its issues. The Terminator Cobra loses alternators and intercooler pumps, and things that normally go out, and sometimes they go out a little bit more. But the main thing is with these Mustangs, you could pretty much replace everything on that car for the price of what you're going to pay on a few throttle actuators on a BMW M car. And certainly, these engines, though, they make great power and they do a good job holding that power. My friend who melted a piston on our Red Fire Cobra project, that was a fuel issue. The car had leaned out, didn't get enough fuel. But the point is, when we tore the engine down, those journals on the crankshaft and everything, those rod bearings, they were beautiful, and that's after receiving plenty of punishment. So, when it comes to European versus Ford and all that, yeah, maybe the inside quality is a little nicer and you have a lot more bells and whistles, but when those break, it's a nightmare, and it all comes at a cost. So I think if I ever had some kind of European car, it would be on a lease, and I could give it back when it's starting to have all these problems. Um, and I mean, everybody talks about Mustangs and all this about the interior. I've never had a problem with my interior. I don't rub my face against the dash every time I get in it, and I don't sweep my hands over it and touch everything. So I really don't see this huge deal about interiors having, a good amount of plastic in them or whatnot. I mean, it really doesn't matter if you're not rubbing your face against it, all day long. So, also now Ford really, I'll say over the latest, the past 5-6 years or so, Ford's been doing an awesome job on quality. They're really up there towards the top now, and they've used some better materials and all that. But anyway, I think these European cars, honestly I love them. I think they're awesome, but at the same time, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that something so expensive will depreciate like a rock thrown in a river and into a deep lake, more is what it would be. And can't believe that these highly refined cars are so horrible in a lot of their reliability. And so once again, I'm not hating on them. I really do like them, and it would be fun maybe to have a project. But I was thinking, even if I got a project and got it for a good deal and did all this work on myself, I think I would still lose out when it came to repairing things that you can't just fix on your own. You have to actually buy the part or take it to the dealership. And I mean, these Mustangs, they're so popular. You can Google them and you can watch videos like I've made on my channel, and there's it's easy to find videos that are gonna help you fix whatever would be a problem on it, and it's relatively inexpensive compared to some of these other cars. BMWs and Mercedes, you can't even find manuals for them. They make it very difficult, to the point where they want you to take it to the dealership and get it done. Touching on European cars again, I changed the clutch on a Mini Cooper, which is technically a BMW, and that thing was an absolute nightmare. Had to drop the whole subframe just to get in underneath and to access the clutch. And this may be a good or bad thing, but they had all the wiring harnesses going through there, zip tied so tight that you could not get anything off without breaking all of those zip ties and moving the harness out, and it was a nightmare. So anyway, I'm going to stick with my American cars, and if anything, move towards Japanese. I worked on my friend's GTR, and it was another one of the easiest cars I've ever worked on. And so that was what I was aiming for when I went for the G35. I said, let's get a luxury car that's basically a Nissan, and I've been very happy with it. It's been a great car, and haven't spent that much on it at all, other than, you know, some videos you may have seen recently of just, you know, it has 136,000 miles on it, so I did new suspension and, you know, some parts on it. But all in all, I think one of the most important things is that you can take a car and, you know, put it in your garage and fix it and do whatever you need to on your own, and not be dependent on a shop and towing it to a certain place where they're going to have you tow it somewhere else to basically just the dealership. And I mean, what a nightmare to think about all these expenses. So hopefully I haven't hurt any feelings. If there's any, you know, BMW and Mercedes and Volvo and Mini, you know, lovers out there, I really do think they're cool cars, but just definitely not something I want to own. I'm going to stick to the cars that you can easily, you know, literally, we've pulled engines, we've pulled the entire drivetrains out of these cars and put them back together, and they start right up. And so my vote is staying with these American cars that just, I think in that way they're more refined. They're just so much easier to work with. So anyway, thanks for watching, and go ahead and put in the comments what you think about this video and your comments and experience with BMW. I knew a kid personally who lost his engine 2 or 3 times on his 330, I think it was a 330i or a 335i, and it was up for warranty, and he ditched the car. So that's why you can find them so cheap. But anyway, let me know what you think about this video. I thought it'd be kind of an interesting one. Just kind of some videos I've been watching lately, and something I've been interested in. Thanks, guys.